Well, good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to this beautiful day and the off season here in lovely Provincetown. We're very happy to be here, and it's a little more relaxed right now. So if you're thinking of coming, it's a good time to come to Provincetown. We did get an email today from somebody asking about the ferries, and Bay State Ferry is still running, but it's now as of less of weekends only. So if you check out that schedule, you can get here with them. Cape Air is still flying. They go seasonal, so at some point in the winter they won't be flying. And every day throughout the year, you can get Peter Pan bus. Peter Pan bus, which is in the winter, that's what I take. And Peter Pan bus, if you're coming in, if you're flying in, it's very convenient because they'll come and pick you up at the airport. They've got several pickups and also South Station. So you can get here to beautiful Provincetown throughout the winter, and we hope you will come and see us. Okay, so what's coming up? Would you like to get in? Come on in. So we've got several events coming up. Our next event, there's some chairs back there, here.
Okay.
We're just live streaming right now, so you can come in if you want.
Can I come to the store?
Yeah, of course.
We're just gonna continue because we're right in the middle of this.
I'll come check you out.
Thank you. Okay. So this will be our last. I'm thrilled about to have Helen here. This is our last event for the year in Provincetown. So I won't have a next event to give you for Provincetown this year, but our next event after this event is November 2nd at our store in Boston. We're about a year old now. We'll be a year in December in Boston, the Seaport, right next to the ICA Museum. On November 2nd, which is a Sunday, we'll have phenomenal Professor Stephanie Burt from Harvard, who we had Stephanie here in June for Pride with her book Super Gay Poems, which has just won the top book of poetry for the Northeastern region. That was last month that she won that. She's got this fantastic book that just came out, a phenomenal new book on Taylor Swift. Taylor's version, authorized Taylor Swift book. And you might not know Stephanie from all the awards she's won as a best-selling poet. And you might not know Stephanie from Super Gay Poems, but a lot of people know Stephanie because she went viral. She has millions of social media followers because she teaches, among other courses, she teaches a course at Harvard on Taylor Swift, on the poetic and musical genius of Taylor Swift. So November 2nd, it's almost sold out, but we still have tickets, which includes the free ticket option, which is always available for every one of our events. If not, you can pay the big price of $5, which helps defray the cost of these events, but there's always free tickets. For that event, there's going to be a party with Stephanie Burt afterwards, so at our store in the Seaport. So we hope to see you there. It's a really good book. And if you're going to be in Tallahassee, Florida, where I'm from, in the capital of Florida, there's a fantastic event that's, I think, in its 15th year in April, called the Word of South Book and Music Festival. And Mark Mushkin, a former city official, a political leader and judge, and a best-selling author who we had this summer for Boy with Wings, he runs this festival, and I got Stephanie an invite. So Stephanie will be in the red state of Florida. And I'm going to be down there with her. So looking forward to it. So if you want to get tickets to that, you should try to go. They also bring in amazing music acts. So it's quite a great little thing. Final event of the year is mid-December in Boston. Robert Edwards with his phenomenal and very important book called Resisting the Right. And we're going to have a talk, a workshop, and actions going on, and writing, postcard writing. And so we hope you'll come. We'll have snacks and drinks for that. It's like in mid-December. It's on our website. Anyway, and I'm happy to say that I'm amazed that already our summer schedule is getting filled up with authors and publicists. So we've got an exciting thing. And if I could mention one final thing about in June, I have a special event with 20 Summers, Julia Glass's 20 Summers, where we're bringing in the gallery directors and publishers of Boys, 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 a gallery and publishing company based in London and Paris. And we're going to have, it'll be at Stanley, their new space, which was the Goa Gallery, the Schoolhouse Gallery building. So 20 Summers is doing events year round. There's going to be at least a week, maybe a 2-week exhibit of the art, which will be for sale for Boys, Boys, Boys and 20 Summers. And then the bookstore will be selling their books, magazines, zines, and other items. There'll be a talk, at least one, maybe 2 talks with some of the models and photographers from London, LA, Paris, New York coming in. So I'm really excited of this event. I think there might be a reception or something to help 20 Summers, to benefit 20 Summers as well. So look for that. I think it's going to be in June. Anyway, everything else is on there. Outside the Lines, Helen Fremont. Oh, my friend Helen. So good to see you again. Helen is, and I want to say that on our website, on the event page, we've got a long biography of this amazing.
These guys are all friends.
They
should probably tell
this
us.
This is more for the people who will be watching the recording later on who want to know more about you. It's all on there, and there'll be some on there. But Helen, for people that are watching now, will be watching more importantly later, is the author of the national best-selling memoir After Long Silence. Her second memoir, The Escape Artist, was selected as an editor's choice by the New York Times. Her work has appeared in many publications, including prize stories, the O. Henry Awards, the New York Times, Ploughshares, and the Harvard Review. She's been a teaching fellow at both Radcliffe and the Radcliffe Institute. She was a scholar in the Women's Studies Research Center Scholars Program at Brandeis University and worked as a public defender in Boston, where she now lives with her wife. And I share that kind of like also legal heritage with Helen as an attorney and a former co-chair of the National Lesbian Gay Law Association. So we bond on many levels. This book is just phenomenal. And look at the cover. I mean, I'm sure that'll be a question, or you will tell us about it, because I've gotten a number of inquiries about this amazing cover. We're so thrilled to have Helen here. And yes, as always, since obviously it's off season, Helen will sign all the remaining books, and we have more in the back there. So we'll have signed copies of the books for people that come later and want to get it. If you order on the website and you want a signed copy, in the memo section, just say, I want a signed copy. And since Helen's in Boston, I think I can say that when we run out of signed copies, I can bring some to the Boston, or there'll be some in the Boston store, and I can bring some to get them signed. So I can get them to you even when we run out. So I'm really happy about that. So anyway, I also see a number of friends here as well. It's good to see you, and it's hard to believe that we are at 10 years now here in Provincetown. Technically, because we opened like a soft opening like in December of that year. So it's, you could say it'll be 11 years next year, or a full 10 years. So it's really great to be here, and great to be in Boston as well, and nice to be here in a little less crowded time. I will say, Helen, that in both stores, since it came out, we sold a lot of copies. And what usually
These guys
happens,
probably bought
they probably bought a lot of them. Now, what we do see is that like the moment we get an event put on our website, if the book is out, it starts selling, and so all the way through the week of the event, and then afterwards, people wanting to get signed copies, or they missed it and they see some social media photos later or whatnot. They're like, oh, so we keep selling the book, and that's the kind of data we provide to the publicists and stuff, so they know the full reach, and they want to see that because they know that it's not just the day of the event, that it's the support for the sales. So we'll get all that.
You guys a lot to get your own copy tomorrow, because this is one, you've got your copies, but certainly you'll think tomorrow, oh my God, I only have 3 of these. I have 6. What was I thinking?
And I just, because I'm a little, I did, because I haven't recovered from summer yet, but my audience here will tell me right away. Did I already mention about the theater offensive event?
No.
Okay, that's the final one. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm thrilled to be co-chairing an event with the author and actress Christy Cashman on on Sunday, December 7th, it's going to benefit the Theater Offensive, which has been around like 35 plus years in Boston, doing performances at the Huntington Theater, theaters all around Boston. I'm chairing their capital campaign to build their new theater in the Fenway. We're getting close to be able to proceed with that. And this event is going to be a very relaxed, chilled holiday soiree. It's at the Quinn, the private club that Ken Folk is the creative director of, in the newest restaurant that he created called Lunasol, which is like a breath of fresh air. It's like being in Sao Paulo. It's very relaxed. There's going to be performers from New York and LA and a couple other places. There's going to be music. There's going to be lavish food and drinks and mocktails and waters and coffees. And if you, support the Theater Offensive and want to support them, want to learn more about them, are curious about the Quinn, the private club, and the amazing art collection that's there, and some of the members, like Doris Kearns Goodwin, then you should come and get a ticket. You can get tickets two ways. You can go on our website, East End Books Ptown, to December 7th, and there's a private link for tickets there. Or you can go on the Theater Offensive website under upcoming events, and it'll be listed there as well. These performances of music, you're not going to be stuck sitting for like an hour or 2 hours or something. But they're going to be little, short performances throughout the evening, so you can come and go. The tickets are for just ticketing is for It's $100 for all that food and libations and all that goes to and the entertainment to the Theater Offensive. You'll be able to take some tours of the Quinn and their amazing art collection and their listening room. They've got a record library. It's incredible. And if you're interested in being a sponsor, which starts at $500, or a co-host, you can email me at the bookstore, or you can email Theater Offensive on that information. So we hope you'll attend. It's on a Sunday, so hopefully people are, it's not during the regular work week, so hopefully people can come. I think it starts at 6. It's on the website. It's going to be a lot of fun, so I hope you'll come and get into the holiday spirit. And if you're not in Boston and you're coming from outside of Boston, you're like, well, what else is there to do? Well, there's a lot. There's a lot to do. So the Snowport opens in the Seaport this weekend, which is, phenomenal. It's hundreds of small independent businesses that are there in the Seaport, just 2 blocks away from East End Books, Boston Seaport. There's also in the Seaport Alamo Cinema Draft House that's there. There's one of the best jazz and blues supper clubs and one of the few black-owned businesses there, Grace by Nia, which is fantastic. It's New Orleans style food for people that like ice cream, which I like it every day, even in the winter. There's the new ice cream museum, not just for kids, for everyone. And we are right next to one of my favorite museums anywhere, the ICA museum that's there. So anyway, there's a lot to do if you want to take a night and come, stay every night, and we hope you will. All right, without further ado, the person we've all come here to see, Helen Fremont.
Thank you. You got to take a picture of these guys because they're awesome. Thank you all.
I agree.
And that was just wonderful. And Jeff is a gem. He's just, if you haven't figured that out already, you guys know him. But also, that is an amazing kick-ass bookstore you've got in Boston, and it's beautiful. I mean, you just look out and there's the harbor, the Boston Harbor. It's gorgeous. And thanks to that, I now know there are all these things in my neighborhood that I never knew were there. And I will be at the ice cream shop tomorrow. Anyway, it's so great to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming. I feel like I have this little letterpress birthday card, and it's a scientist leaning over a microscope, and he's looking in the slide, and he's just saying, "Thank you, my little friends, for coming to my birthday party." And I feel like, I really appreciate it. And this can be really informal because either you all know each other, or at least a couple factions of you know each other. And we have, the public defender faction and / police detective people, and then we have the rowers, and then we have the can-do surgery or anything else that you need at any time person.
Very handy.
To our own in-house activist, attorney, writer, and bookseller. So thank you all for being here. We can just chat, and you can actually tell the real story about. Now, and actually, there's a story in this book. I mean, Maureen was my college rowing coach. Corinne, back there, is a private attorney who has been doing public defender work for longer than, I don't know, how many years? 40?
Yeah.
40, give or take a decade. And then Stephanie Page was my boss at Public Defender's Office, and you know the people in this book. Meredith, her wife, has also, I'm not sure whether Meredith knew the people in this book, but she certainly knew me and still came. So it's pretty amazing.
And Corinne herself is now a best-selling author.
That's what I wanted to say. I wanted to put a little plug in for Corinne. Is not only public defender, but also a accomplished poet, and has a new book out called Lesbian in Hiding. Great.
And Corinne, what was the title of your previous book?
Hot Butch Cold Bitch.
All right. Do you have both of them?
I believe we still have. I think we still have some copies of that one as well. I'll look afterwards. Yeah.
Great.
Bestseller.
But the new one, yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Again, thanks to Corinne.
So and this is not this is not a bribe to make you stay here, because but I did bake some goodies as promised, and they're just you can. And I brought little freezer bags so you can take them home with you, because we don't want to have crumbs on here.
Are these special goodies or regular goodies?
Well, I think they're special. You know,
I mean,
like,
were you visiting Nash at Be Well before you made these? That's what I want.
No, I actually made these. So take them, at your own risk. But there's, what did I make? I make oatmeal espresso chocolate chip with, ridiculously healthy for you, because they have amaranth and quinoa seeds. This is what we're not actually going to talk about those. And then there's also bittersweet brownie, shortbread brownie. That's all together. Like, there's 2 layers. So you want to stick around for that, if not, the book.
And see the people on the live stream what you're missing. Delicious food. I mean, had I known about this, I would have promoted that as well, because this was safer than when we had years ago. Chef Rossi. Do you remember? Were you at that for many years? So many years ago, when with her book that was out at the time, she asked me, because she's also an award-winning chef, and her book was made into a play and all this. But she said, "I would like to." Have some baked goods. Is that okay? And I said, okay, because we were outside. I said, yeah, we can do it. And so then all of a sudden I'm getting these comments on social media, because she had put some stuff out about social media. And how could I say this? But she said, and I won't say the full thing, ladies, come in and I want you to come for my reading, and you'll get to eat my, and I leave it blank. Let's just say that the cookies are made in the shape of something. Which she then said to me, in front of everybody, it was here, I was crowded, that's probably the closest I've come to this. And I said, you're right, as a gay man. I say no more. So these are tame in comparison to...
These are tame, yes. They have a lack of imagination or courage, whatever.
Beg to differ, Helen.
So I will... you only have to sit around for like another 15 minutes, and then we can eat. But I will read just a really short part of this, and then talk more about, what the book's about, or why I wrote it, or whatever else you want to talk about. It doesn't matter. So I'll start at the beginning. In those days, I used to wake before dawn, bike across town to the Boys and Girls Club, and swim a mile in the dimly lit pool, chanting the number of each lap to empty my mind. Then I'd head downtown to work as a staff attorney at the Public Defender's Office. I'd return home at night to my water-stained, rent-controlled apartment that I shared with a large family of cockroaches. At 29, I still had the mind of a teenager. Fortunately, I still do. The direct result of being my parents' daughter. In our family, growing up, assuming independence was taboo. despite outward appearances of holding down a job, paying the rent, foraging for food, and getting myself to therapy on time, I was fundamentally a kid attached to my parents at the expense of knowing who I was. Of course, my parents had no idea who I was either. Their lives had been shattered by the war, their dreams amputated. I was their new limb. It had never been any of my business what I thought or wanted. I just did my best to fit into the image my parents projected, contorting myself to catch the beam of light in their eyes. It took me decades to separate my own feelings and desires from theirs. 1987 turned out to be a big year for me, development-wise. In January, I finally tested my long-held theory that I was probably queer by sleeping with, and to my surprise, falling in love with a woman named Carla. An older married woman, as it turned out, with a husband and 2 kids, but this didn't seem like such a bad idea, since I was not looking for commitment. I was already in a committed relationship with my parents and sister. I figured a married woman would place fewer demands on me. My affairs with men had always left me wishing for less. It hadn't occurred to me that changing the gender of the person I slept with would revolutionize the intensity of my feelings and needs. Such is the awesome power of denial. I also decided that year to return to my first love, writing. And I'll stop there so you don't all fall asleep. But if you want to come in, you can, but you don't have to. You commit yourself. You can still get cookies at the end. Or get someone to bring them to you. You know, it's funny because as I look at you guys, right, friends from the 70s, the 80s, and you are like, how could she not have known? Well, there are a lot of people in the book here who are like, are you serious, Helen? You waited until you were 30 years old to have it? But, you know, I just thought probably, but I don't want to like rush into anything. I'll just wait a few decades. And so this book actually is sort of my first foray into not just, I think finding out I was queer was like the first time it occurred to me like, oh, there could actually be a depth of feeling attached to being best friends with somebody, and more thereof. And so it was that discovery also coincided with I didn't know I was Jewish yet. I didn't know I was a lesbian yet. I didn't know a lot of things, and many of you helped me reach, you know, like at least get to know a little bit better what really turns me on. And then, you know, of course, you outshone me so much. Like, I'm looking at my first boss as a public defender, Stephanie Page, and it's like, you know, she's... Anyway, I won't go into too much detail about the recognition, the national recognition. She's Mayring Earl, coach at Wellesley College, at MIT, at Northeastern University, and now is... Master's coaching. So if you have any legal questions, you go to Stephanie or Meredith, and Rowie writing questions to Meredith and Marie. Anyway, so I like to think of this book as just you know, irresistible little love story about homophobia and anti-Semitism and adultery and death. You know, so it sort of covers the bases. What's not to love? And I think that this was something that I was, 30, and I did not know, as usual, I was the last one to know that I was in love with, you know, this woman who was in my writing program with me, and who also had a similar story to mine, in that it had never occurred to me. I mean, I knew my parents were from Eastern Europe, and they'd survived, nobody else did, and we didn't talk about it. But this woman who happened to be in my writing program listened to the story that I had always grown up with, and I said, well, you know, your story sounds similar to mine, except, you know, we're not Jewish. And she said, I beg to differ. And I think, you know, it actually, as it turns out, like, she was raised super duper wasp in Boston by, her father was like a big senior partner at a white shoe law firm, and he was a big wig in the state house, and he and his wife belonged to the country club, which did not allow Jews or blacks or people of any color. And she was raised in this family, and then at 17, she fell in love with this guy who was Israeli, and he was at BU, and he was much older and had, in fact, come from Eastern Europe, and he had lived in Paris, and then he just was worldly in a way that she had gone to like Beaver County Day School, but they did not even know about the Holocaust. He actually was a child survivor. Anyway, so she eloped with him as a teenager, went off to Israel, and lived with him for 17 years, learned Hebrew, got her college degree there, had 2 kids, and her parents were like, oh my God, mortified that their daughter, but her mother had tried to dissuade the Israeli guy, whose name is Rafi in the book, from dating her daughter, and actually tried to bribe him and say, how much money do you want to stay away from my daughter? And lo and behold, when she was 34, she discovered that her own mother was Jewish and had hidden it from her father. And here she goes and marries this guy who was a baby. I mean, he was like born in 41. He was a Holocaust. His father had been killed. His mother, he had bleached his hair peroxide. So she had done all this research on Jewish anti-Semitism. And I thought, I never even heard of that. I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, what, just sort of, yeah, okay, that's interesting. But, well, it turns out, she said, why don't you just ask your parents? I was like, no. And then I asked my mother, and, my mother, like, flew off the handle and said, oh, we failed you as a parent. We taught you to be not, discriminatory. And I'm like, I just think maybe somebody's Jewish, maybe a little bit Jewish, maybe you don't even know it. And she just flipped out. She was so upset, and that made me think, maybe we are. But as time went on, Maddie in the book and I both decided to apply to an MFA program. We went to the MFA program together, and she was working on this story about how she goes and marries this Holocaust survivor, Jewish, now living in Israel, and her parents, unbeknownst to her, her mother's Jewish, and they're mucky muff, waspy wasp Bostonians. And we just really, I didn't know, but I fell in love like that. For one thing, she was like totally out of my league. She was like, 5'11", and just incredibly. And that doesn't even, of course, it was her inner light that I was attracted to. Because she was like incredibly brilliant, and she was also a really wonderful writer. And anyway, so we grew to be friends, but I also had the sense that she was kind of, like, not just straight, but as all kind of, I think I was more friendly to lesbians. Like, all my friends were lesbians. And I probably thought I was a lesbian, and most people thought I was a lesbian, and anyway. But with this, it really took a couple of years, and she's the one. I really did not. She came on to me, okay? I was a victim in this relationship, and we fell in love, and of course she's married to this guy who's like, big deal producer. This is the Israeli guy, the Rafi. And I just thought, oh my God, and he was like a major class asshole. He was like, he thought all I did was represent guilty people. He was like, why don't they get a job? What lazy bums? And, that sort of thing. I just thought, okay. And as she explained, he has a completely different cultural reference. He's completely different from us. And I'm thinking, okay, so why did she marry him? But that didn't occur to me. I was going to rescue her from this, like, tragic mistake she had made. And we fell in love, and then things happened, and it turns out she had brain cancer after we fell in love. We were like, oh boy, this is gonna be great. And then it was like, no. Well, actually, before she because it was, one day we're running around the reservoir, and the next day, when we were supposed to go for a run around the reservoir, the phone call, I was waiting for her to call me for our run, and instead it was her sister calling from the ICU saying, guess what? Maddie is in the ICU. She had a seizure. There's a brain tumor, blah, 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 blah. And we had just reached the point, Maddie and I were like, okay, we're in love, but we got all the time in the world. Like, let's, you don't have to rush to divorce this guy. You don't have to, just like take your time. She had 2 kids. We wasn't going to do what I had done before with Carla, which was, so we were going to be reasonable about it. And then she got a brain tumor, which was sort of like, you know what? Rules are out the window. You can do whatever you want. Just go for it. Time is no longer your friend. And so it was, one of those completely hopeless, run into the burning building and spend as much time there as you can. And that's what we did. And we did it for I guess she lived for 2.5 years. And the ironic thing was, because of course, Rafi was, consistent with who he was pretty homophobic. He was pretty sure that, it was okay. He wasn't going to tell his wife that she couldn't hang out with lesbians, but certainly his children should not be unsupervised around, i.e. without him there, if there was going to be a lesbian, because, my vibes would obviously infiltrate their delicate children's, whatever, psyche. And, but the fortunate thing for us, if I can use that word, is that he was this big deal executive producer for WGBH, and so he was working on an international documentary series about Columbus, pegged to the 500th year, right, anniversary. So that was going to be coming out in 1992. So he was in China, in Ghana, in Brazil, in Italy. He was all over the map, writing and filming and producing this thing. So it was like, okay, I guess I could. Oh, and the other thing that we discovered is that we lived a block apart. So, so I got to see more of Maddie than he did, and he didn't really like that. But he wasn't, it's not like he was going to change his schedule in order to stay home. But as Maddie got sicker over the years, and at the end, when she was really reduced to a wheelchair, she got both me and Rafi, and we had always avoided each other. I'll take this hour of the morning before work to see her. You come in the evening, and we arranged it so that we might see each other in passing, but that was it. And he said, you know what, you guys get your shit together because you're going to need each other. I can't decide between you. I need you both. Grow up. And instantly we're like, oh, okay. And he became a really, really, really dear friend. And he was, I literally don't know how I would have gotten through the last couple months of her life if not for him. And vice versa. And that was kind of a surprise. And it really came down to, there's nothing like death to clarify what's really important. And, and the fact that he was a womanizer and he had, all these horrific things that I thought, I would never do that. Who cares? In the end, she loved the guy. He drove her crazy. She was, couldn't live with him, couldn't live without him. And then it didn't matter. And so I did a lot of in these less than 200 pages or so, I did a lot of growing up. I kind of, and then of course I regressed. This all took place 30 years ago. So I could say that right now I'm back to that maturity level of a teenager. So it hasn't stuck with me, but I wanted to write the book just because it was such an important part of my life, and also it folded in together all these ideas of like secrecy and all the things that I meant. Denial is like the star of this book, and it really does you a disservice. I mean, it's a good thing because I don't think any of us could live without it. I couldn't. But you know, like the idea, if we all know we're headed over there, it's like you don't want to just. It's good to deny that that's coming, even though you know it's there, because let's just eat cookies now. You know, why wreck it by thinking, oh, you know, I'm gonna go over the fall, so why not jump over it and not have any suspense? So there it is. I kept you here for a long time, but you all can correct me because you know better who I am than I do.
But what are the chances of finding someone with a parallel track in their lives?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought you always were so unique.
It is, but all of us are. It's just like everybody, you know, it's just that I happen to find out. You don't realize this stuff, but one day you're going to find out you're Jewish and that we're related, and you just haven't found out.
I'm looking forward to
Well, the other
chapter.
The other coincidence is that Rafi is from my parents' hometown.
Oh,
Wow.
What are the chances?
Wow.
Not just Jewish, but from my parents. They probably crossed each other. Well, he was a baby. My parents are 23 years older than he. But yeah, it's just
It's mind-blowing.
it's bizarre.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys, everybody has these amazing stories. I don't think, I mean, that happens to be my unique story, but I guarantee, and I know just from knowing a little bit about you guys, whatever you've revealed to me, whether you knew it or not, it's amazing. I mean, the stories in the people are life is so beyond imagination. So it's yeah. I'll just stop there. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I've only read your first book, but I mean, they're very much about, seems to me, a lot of self-inquiry, right, among other things. Also about family history and all. I'm curious what you learned in the process of writing this book. Maybe that's too big a question, but was there some aha that came out of it, or?
Well, there's always that incredible aha. What an idiot. I can't believe I was, you know, so much, like, seriously, really, I didn't date this woman at first knowing that she was married and had 2 kids, but when that came out, it was like, this could work to my favor, right? There's no problem here. Like, I was thinking that as an adult, as a grown person, and so there were a lot of those ahas, and then in the course of writing it, I would really surprise myself, and maybe Corinne, you can identify this, or maybe not, or Mary Lee, that I would be amazed if, I wrote a sentence that I still liked 24 hours later. You know, it's just like, oh my God, this could be I might be writing something here instead of like, I lost my, you know, all of this stuff that I just write for myself, which either is, oh, poor me, or I'm very flip, or actually there are a few sentences that I thought, you know, I could keep reading this, and that's the first test. And then, of course, I have all these friends who are writers that we exchange each other's work, and I have, basically weeded out the ones who go, oh, I just love this, and gotten to the point where we're like, Helen, you sound like a jerk. And my wife is my first and foremost critic. So even if people say, oh, that's great, she goes, no, Helen, you've got to change this. You look like an asshole. And I'm like, but it's true. And I know you, right? We live together. But for the sake of the book, try to either eliminate that scene or just make it look a little better, And that includes, reading. I was like, oh, why don't I read this section from the book? And it's like a point at which my lesbian friends are trying to set me up with other lesbians, get me away from the straight mommy track that I seem to be going for, and I just come off like, well, you know, I'm not much of a partier. Like, really, why am I going to a party? Oh, we go to this bar. Why do I go to a bar? What? Oh, and it's a dance floor. I couldn't, you know, why this? Why? And she said, you just sound like a, you know, like, who would want to go out with you? So she said, no, don't read that. And I said, well, should I take it out of the book? By now the book is published. And, no, it's okay. By then we get to know you. We might, you know, stick around long enough for that scene. And so she said, it's okay, but, you know, at first, you don't hit someone over the head with that. There's a reason it comes on page 100 and page 3. But what else does, I think what was so striking is it is about coming out to yourself. And so much of that is, I mean, I really was an incredibly immature 29, 30-year-old. And I just went to my high school reunion, my 50th high school reunion, which is crazy, right? And yet, you know, there were, and it was like this giant regional public high school in upstate New York. So there was just people from all different, you know, they're like the doctor's little daughter, that was me. And then there were people who were just like really scraping the bottom of the barrel, and we were all together in the same. And so it was really interesting to see these people that I always thought they were like way ahead of me. They did not have any use for me. I was like a little people pleaser. I was like a teacher's pet. I would always like raise my hand in class, and they were like, oh God. And I just knew that in another, well, I didn't know it would take me another like 30 or 40 years to reach their maturity, but you know, these were people who knew how to, they were holding down a job, were doing childcare for their kids, were, you know, taking care of her, you know, mom who was, you know, half the time in the tank or whatever. And it was just like, wow, I am so protected. I am just so protected. And going back now after 50 years and seeing like, wow, we're all kind of in the same place. I mean, okay, 13% of our class died, which apparently is pretty much where, I guess statistically, 15% of people my age, which as you can tell is like 39, at 68, 69, 15% of us are dead. And that's also the people who are incredibly privileged who, you know, never went hungry, never smoked or drank, you know, all of that. It just doesn't matter. That's coming, right? So it's the whole carpe diem thing. Just seize the day and rob that bank, right? Because no, I'm not promoting anything. You know, that's the.
You have the right information.
Right.
They'll defend you.
Was it?
We're just promoting smoking and drinking nonstop.
Actually, I have a friend who's 95 who has smoked every day of her life, and she can walk farther than I can. Wow. I mean, it's, you know, it's ridiculous. Whatever. But I'm just going to think of Mike Hussey, was it, who had a client, and I guess it was bank robbery he was charged with, and Mike, or whoever it was telling us, you know, if you want to get a face tattoo, you can get a face tattoo. If you want to rob a bank, rob a bank. But do not get a face tattoo and rob a bank. Those are the, you know, these are the kinds of things. What this has to do with my book, I have no idea. But it's a learning curve. You know, I think they're right. Maybe that's why I went to the public defender. I was like, I can identify with these, you know, as opposed to law school, where I was like, for interviews at firms, and I thought, who are these people? Who are they? And then I did all the clinical programs in law school, and then and by the time I graduated, I mean I dropped out of law school to go work on a farm and milk cows and all of that, and then I said, all right, I'm a semester away from graduating. Just hold your nose, do it. You never have to practice law again in your life. I went and worked in the Appalachian Mountain Club and was a hut girl for summer, fall. Then I went into the Peace Corps, and then I came back and I wrecked my knee, and I thought, okay, I guess I gotta get a desk job. And so my first job was my personal revenge on law school, which was prosecuting corrupt lawyers. And then and then I really wanted to go over to the good guys, to the and I remember being interviewed. Prescott was in the interview, and they're like, "But you're a prosecutor," and I'm like, "No, I'm prosecuting, the white collar guy. My heart is with you." And I had done a whole public defender semester in law school, so they were like, "Oh," and I think I had the ACLU card. I was a member, when I applied to CPCS to be a public defender, and because they asked, "Are you a member of any bar associations?" I'm like, "Oh, that costs money." And I said, "Well, I am a member of the ACLU only because they had the $5 student membership."
Oh, yeah. What about National Lawyers Guild? Remember, I was a member of that.
But I don't know. Now I want to ask you guys, how'd you get where you are? But you may not want to go on live television and tell us. But I got to say, it's a thrill to see you, especially my buddies from long ago who know me and still came. So thank you. And there are, and I promise you, there are cookies, and there are also some. I did not make these, but there are some fresh this morning. Cinnamon apple cider donuts. That I did not make.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.